versus health, such as muscle use, sleep habits, and sun exposure. Companies merge digital fabrics with VR gaming, letting users feel vibrations and hot and cold sensations when playing. NASA's Artemis mission launches to begin building a permanent habitat on the moon. On Earth, building materials are becoming a new generation of smart materials. Bricks double as energy storage cells and are capable of data storage and retrieval. Robotic dogs are employed by fire and rescue services, police, military, and delivery companies. The first humans leave Earth for the Red Planet aboard a SpaceX Starship. The Mars astronauts use VR goggles to help keep them calm during the 7-month journey.
Главное в продвижении на YouTube – это оригинальные видео с понятным призывом к действию.
Здорово.
Поэтому YouTube предоставляет инструменты и ресурсы, чтобы помочь бизнесу любого масштаба создать вовлекающую рекламу. Humans begin to interact with virtual reality artificial life. Living beings in a digital world that learn how to act, move, and interact with humans on their own, creating their own behaviors and way of life. Wearable tech is replaced by subdermal tech, chips that are inserted beneath the skin and link users to their home and robotic devices, giving them control using verbal instructions. People with medical issues are using Neuralink chips to make them better. The chip is able to restore eyesight and help people who are paralyzed to walk again. The Universal Translator is used at the United Nations, reducing the need for human interpreters and translators. Quantum computers are used in high-end chemical engineering. They are able to quickly design new medicines, biodegradable plastics, and building materials. 5G networks carry in vast amounts of data, take control of transportation flow systems, and self-driving networks to improve urban mobility. The Interplanetary Internet system goes online, creating a computer network in space. The network is made up of landing robots, planet satellites, and Earth ground stations. A Jupiter rover sends data to a Jupiter satellite, which beams it to a Mars satellite that then sends the data to Earth. Facilities in place on Mars begin production of 3D printed habitats. Other robot factories produce water and oxygen, as well as laboratory-grown plant and meat products for the arrival of more human explorers and scientists. The first guests arrive at the former International Space Station that is being converted into a luxury orbital hotel, while a new commercial International Space Station is being used for scientific research. The rise of bioplastics takes place, created from renewable resources such as sugar and mushrooms. Reprogrammable microchips allow hardware to be upgraded, just like software. Filming begins on the first Hollywood blockbuster that is filmed entirely off-world, using sets and locations in Earth's orbit and on the moon. SpaceX's Starlink internet constellation for Earth is fully operational. The world's first industrial-scale fusion reactor goes online and starts generating electricity from the fusion of hydrogen atoms, creating vast amounts of clean energy. People start taking anti-aging drugs that take away certain cells that develop as humans age. Elon Musk begins implanting Neuralink chips in healthy people to give them enhanced abilities. The first artificial intelligence judge sentences a criminal to jail. People are now working in completely virtual workspaces. Digital fabrics evolve into power assist fabrics, helping humans walk and gain back mobility in old age. They also give humans added strength and show users how to learn new physical skills. Smart tattoos are used with embedded personalized circuits that allow people to control the devices around them. 4D printing is being used to create new smart materials, materials that able to transform their structures in response to their environment, such as when exposed to heat or light. People are now living with 3D bioprinted artificial organs.
Ну нет, вот я просто уже так это, да. Офигеть просто, понимаешь? Ну а вдруг, кто знает. Это еще до 30-го года не дошло, понимаешь? Потом, так.
Swarm robotics start to make their way into everyday life. Fleets of robots, such as small drones or robotic ants, communicate with each other and work together. They are able to lift construction materials and become structures themselves by organizing to form a bridge. Everyday people are living with IA, brain chips for intelligence amplification, allowing their thinking, memories, and problem solving to be helped with the use of a machine. Subdermal tech is overtaken by neural links. I am not a human verification systems are in place to keep humans out. Permanent Luna settlements. Humans are living on the moon in science research stations and transit hub facilities, acting as a link
Можно 22 год уже
Mars
теперь.
and the outer
21
solar
прошел,
system.
22 теперь, да, я
A
понял.
space station constructed in orbit around the moon begins operations.
Ладно.
Billions of people around the world tune in to watch the Bionic Olympics, where humans with robotic limbs compete. People are wearing self-cleaning fabrics that are woven with micrometals which break down dirt when exposed to sunlight. The Starshot Alpha Centauri program, founded by Yuri Milner, Stephen Hawking, and Mark Zuckerberg, launches 1,000 tiny spacecrafts that are equipped with light sails and are powered by lasers on Earth get sent into space. They reach 20% of the speed of light. The tiny spacecrafts are on a mission to fly by and gather data from Proxima Centauri b, an exoplanet that is in a human habitable zone of the star system. The Square Kilometer Array goes online. Dishes across the deserts of South Africa and Australia are 50 times more sensitive than the Hubble Space Telescope, and are able to pick up faint radio signals from any potential extraterrestrial civilization. 4D printing of moon habitats begin. Materials absorb solar radiation and micrometeor impacts, converting solar and impact energy into electrical energy. Moon-based construction of spacecrafts began, to be used in the further exploration of the solar system. Quantum computing-based chemical engineering creates a genetically altered strain of wheat designed to survive in the extreme cold and thin CO2 atmosphere of the Martian environment. And neural brain chips allow people to talk to each other telepathically. Humans record every event of their lives from birth to death. Inner speech recording is possible. Hackers are able to plant artificial memories. Humans have sensors flowing through their bloodstream, monitoring their health. In robotics, police robot units accompany human police officers for patrols. The robot population surpasses the human population. Extinct animals are brought back to life. The first woolly mammoth is grown from DNA found in the preserved soft tissues of the long-dead beasts. Herds of mammoths and woolly rhinoceroses roam in a zoo of living fossils. Asteroid capture operations begin. Robots guided by artificial intelligence capture asteroids from the asteroid belt and maneuver them into the orbits of the Moon and Mars. The raw materials are delivered to Mars and the Moon to be converted into materials for further off-world habitat construction and space exploration crafts. Stem cells regenerate missing body parts, including teeth and limbs. Genetic engineering adapts human bodies for the rigors of spaceflight, reducing muscle and bone mass loss from prolonged periods of weightlessness. 300,000 people live on Mars. Newborns on Earth inherit the data trails of their parents. Arc reactors are now efficient and compact. They are used as a portable power source and are employed for military and exploration purposes. People are able to rent and stream dreams while they sleep and dream together in the same virtual world. Artificial general intelligence emerges from a super quantum computer. A human-designed computer achieves consciousness. It is able to learn new things and is self-aware. Interspecies communication is now possible. Robots begin to hold funerals for one another. Artificial life forms are born. Quantum computers are able to design biological life forms from scratch, from redesigning bacteria that can consume plastics to creating designer humans.
The average lifespan of someone born today will be 5,000 years. An AI has the status of a corporation. A global artificial intelligence manages a global Hyperloop transit system, removing the need for commercial flights. All Hyperloop vehicles are built with self-repairing smart materials. Basic molecular assemblers are in use, letting humans create any type of food with the push of a button. Humanity is well settled all around the solar system and is exploring the outer system. Robotic transit fleets transport materials across the solar system. NASA's Alcubierre warp drive goes live. In the vacuum of space, nothing can move faster than the speed of light, but negative energy is used to warp space-time. The space behind the spaceship expands, and the space in front contracts, causing a warp bubble, bending space-time around the spaceship and breaking the speed of light. Mars declares independence from Earth. Humanity is declared a Type 1 civilization. They know how, and need to use and store, all of the available energy on their planet. The Type 1 civilization controls the weather, the sea currents, the volcanoes, the earthquakes, and has terraforming technologies. Dyson structures are built in orbit to capture the energy from the sun. Generation ships built from super lightweight and self-repairing materials are accelerated to sub-light speeds. Journeys to nearby star systems take place. Colonization of worlds around distant stars begins.
Orbital cycles of Earth create a new glacial ice age. Environmental engineering is employed to warm the planet and reduce glacier growth.
Humans develop new colonies at new star systems and immediately begin asteroid mining and the construction of the Dyson structures to capture energy. Dyson structures now surround the sun and distant stars. Humanity achieve Type 2 status, the beginnings of the galactic civilization. As a Type 2 civilization, they are able to use and control the energy of its planetary system and can prevent the death of its own star by injecting fuel into it. Humankind's consciousness is downloaded into a quantum computer core. The Matryoshka brain, a supercomputer using multiple Dyson spheres, drives a simulation for humanity.
Ну нет, это не там, потому что я
Humanity is transferred.
скачиваю эту игру, энергию, скачиваешь с ним туда. Чего за прикол? Себя так думаю. Same.
Into a simulation to live and travel much further in the galaxy. Virtue for humanity. Humanity is transferred into a simulation to live and travel much further in the galaxy. Swarms of tiny, lightweight robots enter distant star systems and begin construction of various facilities before the arrival of humanity. Human consciousness is transmitted as data
Ну, наоборот,
to the new star
так уже
system.
писали. Написал уже такую книгу, да, знает, просто, да, ну, наоборот,
Robot bodies are waiting to accept the human consciousness. Robotic bodies are exchanged for biological ones, designed and grown to be suitable for local planetary environments.
Humanity is on course to become a Type 3 galactic scale civilization, needing to use all of the energy available in its galaxy, with technology so advanced that space-time is their playground. At this point, humanity meets another civilization of pure numerical spirits that had been waiting in a colder space outside of the universe.
Дисней, что ли? Нет, не Дисней.
real-time technology is changing industries across the spectrum. Wherever the need for high-fidelity, photorealistic visuals, proven performance, or interactive experiences, Unreal Engine provides a solution as the world's most open and advanced real-time development platform. Adding to the infinite creative possibilities, Unreal Engine employs a powerful dynamic physics and destruction system with chaos destruction. With chaos, users can achieve cinematic quality visuals in real time in scenes with massive scale levels of destruction and unprecedented artist control over content creation. The chaos destruction system is a collection of tools within Unreal Engine that provides several core benefits, including a quick and intuitive workflow, allowing artists to quickly learn, develop, and rapidly create stunning dynamic effects. Real-time performance. Real-time performance not only benefits the playback, it also empowers creators to develop and simulate, seeing the results immediately on screen as they work. In addition, chaos is not dependent on specific hardware coding, meaning that the simulations can be produced and played back on any capable performant GPU. Before we dive into a demonstration, let's explore the technology behind chaos. Destruction within the chaos system starts with a new kind of asset called a geometry collection. This is where the destructible piece or pieces are defined. Once you have your geometry collection, inside the fracture editor, you can choose the type of fracture to perform and the settings used to perform that fracture. Clustering and performance. This is a way of collecting how the fractures will behave and to what extent. These can be further combined to increase more dynamic results. The field system within the chaos destruction tools is a way of directly affecting a physics simulation by occupying a region of space with varying parameters in order to produce different behaviors or breakage effects. Anchors can be used to lock portions of a geometry collection in place while the rest of the geometry collection breaks apart. Chaos solvers within the chaos destruction system can store important data, such as a list of collision, braking, and trailing events as the simulation runs. Niagara, Unreal Engine's high-performance particle system for creating high-quality effects such as smoke, dust, water, and fire, can take the chaos data and utilize this in a multitude of ways. Here we see Chaos and Niagara working together to generate destruction, smoke, dust, and additional debris pieces as the simulation runs. So how does chaos work? Well, let's take a look at an overview of how chaos works in Editor. Starting with a piece of geometry, in this case a simple cube, we can access the Chaos Fracture Editor to add our object to a geometry collection, or Chaos's way of defining items to be destroyed. Play back the scene, and we now have some basic physics applied. But let's add some dynamics now. Selecting the cube and using the default settings, we hit the fracture button, and we now have a cracked and shattering object. Adjusting attributes such as mass and density is quick and easy. Let's now take this a step further and apply chaos to a building model example. Here, progressing the same process further along, we can adjust the overall damage threshold and apply things like anchors to control, customize, and add some randomness to the overall physics. Of course, like everything else in Unreal Engine, we can develop this in infinite directions. Here, we're using blueprints to apply forces and affect damage in a localized area. So there we have a brief look at Unreal Engine's next-generation high-performance physics and destruction system with chaos. Unreal Engine is the world's most open and advanced real-time 3D creation platform, continuously evolving to serve not only its original purpose as a state-of-the-art games engine. Today, it gives creators across multiple industries the freedom and control to deliver cutting-edge content, interactive experiences, and immersive virtual worlds.
хорошо или не очень? Или не... Да. Почему же, а что плохого? Еще что плохого, а что хорошего? Что плохого, что хорошего, да? Вот это имеется в виду. Ну, типа того, да. Ну, наоборот, надо понимать. Да, да. Нет, так из-за кого? Я мужчина, мне за что должно быть стыдно? Мне за кого стыдно должно быть? Я понимаю, да. Вот то, что ты бездельник, это стыдно, но это поправимо, понимаешь? Тренироваться надо, да. То, что ты слабый, это тоже, ну, куда деваться. А для чего тебе сила? Что такое сила и для чего она тебе нужна? Нужна она тебе вообще или нет? Да, не понимаю. Приятно, да, приятно. Ну да, наверное, смотри, что сложно. Наверное, да, может стать. Один рождение человека. Ну, так получилось. Я не собирался быть отдельным, просто у меня есть, ну, как сказать. Да, да, да. У меня нет намерения быть, то есть, как бы, да, понимаю. Ну, мы все отдельно, если так уж говорить. Не слепись даже, да, понимаете. Нет, понимаете. Ну нет, что ты предлагаешь-то? Просто так вот, да, понимаете. Ну нет, не бывает, ну да, ну вот тебе так будет. Одинаково надо быть. Там всем по-разному. Ну как. Ну да, наоборот. Ну, не бывает, это фикция всего лишь. Вот если обратно что-то положено, да, типа того. Абстрагироваться абстрактно, да. Наоборот, когда вот так думаю, да. Наверное, как такое мега тысячелетие, это не тысячелетие. Это не надо мозги себе забивать, потому что думаю, да. Ну да, то есть, как иначе, только так, да, по доброй воле, то есть, не все пройдут, вообще немногие ходят, как говорится, да, понимаю. Ну понятно, да. Но не отчаиваться надо, работать дальше надо, зарабатывать надо. Ну хорошо, да, все равно то же самое получается. Ну это просто, да, им это и не надо. Ну, наверное, гипотеза, ну, наверное, так, ну, да, может так и есть. Да. На район не твой груем, как всегда. Удом. Не тот. Кому надо, кому надо, кому надо, кому надо. Часов почти. День. Ну правильно, негатив. Наверное, не знаю. Знаю, точно, надо сюда. Можно.
You've probably heard of the 5 Platonic Solids before. You know, these guys. If you watch as much educational YouTube as I do, you've probably seen a good share of videos that explain why there's only 5. When educational videos introduce the Platonic Solids, they usually describe what makes them special by saying that all their sides, edges, and corners are the same. This is a slight simplification of the formal definition of a regular polyhedron. The thing is, the Platonic Solids are not the only regular polyhedra. There are several more. It's just that all the other ones are usually ignored when talking about the concept to beginners. And yet, not only do these beginner-friendly educational videos tend to ignore the regular polyhedra that aren't Platonic Solids, you'd be hard-pressed to find a comprehensive list of regular polyhedra anywhere on the internet. But why? What are these secret shapes that Big Shape doesn't want you to know about? I'm Young Easley, and there are 48 regular polyhedra. Part 1. What? Yeah, I know. 48 of them? Why didn't anyone tell me? That's so many more than 5. So, before we get into everything, I'm going to have to define some terms, since this video is supposed to be for a general audience. First, we're restricting ourselves to Euclidean 3-dimensional space. If you don't know what that means, don't worry about it, and if you do know what it means, I'm sure you'll understand why I think this is a reasonable restriction. Okay, now let's define our terms. You can plot any 2 points in space and connect them to form a line segment. Line segments are what you might call boring. You can make things less boring by having 2 line segments have one endpoint in common. Now the 2 line segments each have one endpoint that's connected and one endpoint that's disconnected. We can add a 3rd line segment which goes from one disconnected endpoint to the other, and we get a triangle. A triangle is an example of a polygon. It's a polygon because it's made out of line segments, and all the points that define the component line segments are shared by exactly 2 line segments. The points in a polygon are called its vertices, and the line segments are called its edges. Polygons can have however many edges you want, as long as there's at least 3. I mean, you could have 2 of them, but they'd end up just being in the same place, and the shape you end up with is indistinguishable from if you just had one line segment on its own, so that's usually not allowed. Polygons can pretty much be shaped however you want, as long as they fit the definition of being made out of line segments and every vertex being connected to exactly 2 edges. There's a special category of polygons called regular polygons, which have a couple of specific properties that other polygons don't. All of their edges are the same length, and the vertices that they meet at all have the same angle. This is an okay enough way to describe what it means for a polygon to be regular, but for my purposes, it'll be useful to define these qualities a bit more precisely. For a polygon to be regular, it must have symmetry, meaning that it looks the same in multiple different orientations. Specifically, you have to be able to move any edge to any other edge, or any vertex to any other vertex. These qualities are called edge transitivity and vertex transitivity. There are infinitely many polygons that satisfy both of these properties, and in fact, you can construct a regular polygon with an arbitrarily large number of sides: triangles, squares, pentagons, hexagons, heptagons, octagons, and so on, with no upper bound on how many sides it can have. The fact that there are infinitely many regular polygons means that regular polygons are boring, so let's move on. The three-dimensional equivalent to polygons are the polyhedra. Just like how polygons are made out of line segments, polyhedra are made out of polygons, with each edge shared between exactly two of them. The polygons that make up a polyhedron are called its faces. Polyhedra and polygons both belong to a larger class of shapes called polytopes, which generalize the concept to higher dimensions. Higher dimensional polytopes are great, but this video will be entirely focused on shapes that work in 3D space. And the definition of regular polygons can be extended into a definition of regular polyhedra. Once again, it's defined according to symmetry. In addition to vertex and edge transitive, a regular polyhedron must also be face transitive, so you can move any face to any other face. The philosopher Plato showed that there are 5 3D shapes that fit this definition, which are known as the Platonic Solids. Okay, got all that? Great. Part 2. The Platonic Solids. The definition of regular polyhedron is pretty strict, so it makes sense that there would only be 5 of them. I think it's pretty trivial to see that for a polyhedron to be regular, its faces must all be regular polygons, and for it to be vertex transitive, all of its vertices must be the same. So all you need to describe a specific regular polyhedron is what shape its faces are and how many meet at each vertex. You can represent this information using a Schlafly symbol, named after Ludwig Schlafly, with the number of edges of each face, then the number of faces that meet at each vertex, all within curly brackets. Okay, let's look at some regular polygons and see what regular polyhedra you can make out of them. If you start with 3 triangles and fold them up into 3D space so that they all meet around a vertex, the space remaining is perfect for one other triangle, and you get a tetrahedron, also known as a triangular pyramid. Next, start with 4 triangles around a vertex. Since you know each vertex is going to have to be the same, constructing any given platonic solid means looking for openings and putting in more faces, copying whatever vertex you started with. With 4 triangles around a vertex, you eventually form a shape made out of 8 triangles, an octahedron. Doing the same thing with 5 triangles, you eventually get the lovely 20-sided icosahedron, which you might recognize as a D20. If you start with 6 triangles, you run into a problem. They can't actually fold into 3D space because they lie flat. So you've now reached the point where you have too many triangles to make a platonic solid. So let's move on to squares. 3 squares around a vertex gets you a cube, and 4 squares around a vertex is too many because they lie flat again. Last one, put 3 pentagons around a vertex, and eventually you get the 12-sided dodecahedron. And any more than that is once again too many to fit around a vertex. You could start with hexagons, but 3 hexagons is already too many, so we've reached the limit. And so we can convince ourselves that these are the 5 regular polyhedra. And you might look at that and say, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, what else could you do to make another one? The faces have 3 regular polygons, and those are the only 3 polygons where you can fit 3 around a vertex. And you've exhausted all of the options for how many of each you can put around a vertex. And yeah, using these 3 polygons as faces, these are the only 5 closed convex 3D shapes we can construct that fit the definition of a regular polyhedron. But is there any reason to assume that these are the only 3 regular polygons you could use as faces? Now you might be thinking, well, yeah, of course, everything with more sides than a pentagon won't fit. And you're right about that too. But what if you could construct a different regular polygon with fewer than 6 sides? Could that work? The answer, surprisingly, is yes. Part 3. The Kepler solids. Let's get back down to 2D and look at regular polygons. If you have at least 3 line segments that are all the same length, you can use them to construct a regular polygon. So if you have 5 line segments, you can arrange them like this and make a regular pentagon. But what if you did something like this? This is a pentagram, also known as a 5-pointed star, and it's a perfectly good regular polygon. You might say, that can't be a regular polygon. See, that vertex isn't the same as that vertex, so it isn't vertex transitive. This is cheating. But the thing is, those self-intersection points aren't vertices. This polygon has 5 edges and 5 vertices, just like a regular pentagon, and it has the same exact amount of symmetry as a regular pentagon. True, it's not convex, and it does intersect itself, but there's nothing in the rulebook that says a golden retriever can't construct a self-intersecting, non-convex regular polygon. Unless we amend our definition to explicitly exclude shapes like this, it must be included. The pentagram is part of an infinite family of star polygons. Taking them into account, we can say that there is one regular polygon corresponding to every rational angle. That means that if you start with 2 line segments and have them meet at some angle which can be described as some fraction of a circle, you can connect their disconnected ends with similar line segments that meet at the same angle, and eventually, by continuing to do that, you'll get some closed shape which fits the definition of a regular polygon. I think that's pretty cool. While there are indeed infinitely many regular star polygons, the only one that will work as the face of a regular polyhedron is the pentagram. So, let's try it out. Put 3 pentagrams around a vertex, and what you eventually get is this really cool looking shape. I mean, just look at it. What even is this spiky thing? It's made out of 12 pentagrams, so it's a type of dodecahedron. Since it's a star, you could call it a stellated dodecahedron. Let's see what else you can do with pentagrams. 5 pentagrams around a vertex ends up forming another closed shape. Unlike the stellated dodecahedron we made earlier, which had 12 pentagrammal faces, this one has 12 pentagrammal faces. So I guess this one is also a stellated dodecahedron? Okay, since this one isn't as spiky as the other one, let's call it the small stellated dodecahedron, and we'll call the other one the great stellated dodecahedron. Yeah, that makes sense. Another way of thinking about these stellated dodecahedra is by starting with a dodecahedron, and then making its edges longer until they meet up on themselves again. This process is called stellation. This pair of regular star polyhedra was described by Johannes Kepler in 1690, so they're called the Kepler solids, as companions to the Platonic solids. And so we can now conclude that there are 7 regular polyhedra. Except, we're still not done with star polyhedra. Almost 200 years after Kepler described the Kepler solids, a mathematician named Louis Poinsot found another pair of regular star polyhedra, which later were shown to complete the set. Today, the 4 regular star polyhedra together are called the Kepler-Poinsot polyhedra. Part 4, the Kepler-Poinsot polyhedra. To describe what Poinsot found, we'll first need to get back to the idea of a Schläfli symbol. As I showed before, a Schläfli symbol defines each regular polyhedron as the number of edges of each of its faces, followed by how many faces meet together at each vertex. While this definition works for the Platonic solids, it doesn't work for the star polyhedra, since a pentagon and a pentagram have the same number of sides. The solution to this is to represent pentagrammal faces with the number 5/2 instead of 5. There is a reason for this, which I will not be explaining, so just trust me that this makes sense and isn't just arbitrary notation. So the small and great stellated dodecahedron have the symbols 5/2 5 and 5/2 3, respectively. Now, the fact that star faces are represented in this way means that the first number doesn't really mean the number of sides of each face. It's just a number that's used as the name for a specific regular polygon. So then, what about the second number of the symbol? Are the numbers actual numbers, or are they notational shorthand for specific polygons? The answer is the latter. Take the symbol for a cube, or 3. This can be understood to mean square triangle, but what about a cube is triangular? Well, if you look at one vertex where 3 square faces meet, you can slice through a cross-section, and you'll see a triangle. You can say that a cube's vertex figure is a triangle. Oh, and by the way, this Wikipedia animation I'm using here is showing how if you slice through all the faces of a cube at once, you get an octahedron. An octahedron is the dual of a cube, because the cube has square faces and triangular vertex figures, and an octahedron has triangular faces and square vertex figures. So, who cares? Why does any of this matter? Well, just like how a face doesn't have to be a convex polygon, a vertex figure doesn't have to be a convex polygon either. And that's what Poinsot found. If you make a shape with pentagons as its faces and pentagrams as its vertex figure, you get a great dodecahedron. And doing the same thing with triangles gets you a great icosahedron. And if you try it with squares, it just doesn't work. Another way of thinking about the Poinsot polyhedra is to think of taking a dodecahedron and an icosahedron and making their faces larger, rather than making their edges longer. This is another type of stellation called gradient. Anyway, together with the pair of stellated dodecahedra, we now have all 4 Kepler-Poinsot polyhedra. And if grouped in with a Platonic solid, we can now say that there are 9 regular polyhedra. I really like the Kepler-Poinsot polyhedra. They have most of the same properties as the Platonic solids, except that they objectively look way cooler because of all the spikes. They're super underrated, and I think more people should know that they exist. The rest of the regular polyhedra definitely all fit the definition, but they're not what you'd call solids. You'll see what I mean. Part 5. The regular tilings. What we've seen so far is that you can use triangular faces to make tetrahedra, octahedra, icosahedra, and great icosahedra. You can use square faces to make cubes, pentagonal faces to make dodecahedra and great dodecahedra, and pentagrammal faces to make small and great stellated dodecahedra. Hexagonal faces just don't work. But like, why not? You can fit 3 of them around a vertex just fine. It's not like heptagons where they don't fit at all. In fact, if you keep going, you eventually get something like this, a polyhedron with infinitely many hexagonal faces. It has a few names, but it's most well known as the hexagonal tiling. It's one of 3 regular tilings of the plane.